Welcome to Beers with Contractors.
All right, tradies, another episode of Beers with Contractors. I know you guys have waited a long time. I've had people asking me, when is this guest going to get back on? When is this guest? But it's important because there's certain milestones, and success is not just like one big championship and all of a sudden, you never hear from the hero again. Like there's other chapters to having that success. So I am happy now that we have back in studio my good friend Jeff Gablesberg, Jolly Go
Cheers,
Garage
Ron.
Doors. Cheers to you, my man. Honestly, we've been sitting here pre-gaming because we're old buddies and just going on about life and, wedding destination stuff.
All the good stuff, man. All the good stuff.
Yeah. So quick rundown, like to people, there are 5 listeners that have never heard of who you are. Even though if they're the original 5, they know you because you've been on. This will be your 3rd appearance.
I believe it is the 3rd one.
Like Saturday Night Live. I should get you a jacket.
I'm just waiting on my jacket.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. So
Yeah.
I'll definitely expect one next time for sure.
Well, I want to go into your personal history because it shows that guys and gals out there can come from anything and create a business and create wealth from it. Not only that, and your inventions and all that, but let's start out with Jolly Go, one of my favorite brands of all time. Like, what is Jolly Go? What do you guys do? Because that plays an important part in this idea of selling and growing a business.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Jolly Goat is an amazing garage door service company based out of Central Oklahoma.
No. You guys are amazing.
It is. We've built a pretty amazing team. So Jolly Goat Garage Doors, a full service residential commercial garage door business. We've grown it quite a bit, as you know, over the past few years and just put an amazing team in place. And we're just rocking and rolling, but great company.
Yeah. Well, before we get into the backstory, I think we met what was it, 2019 maybe?
It probably was right around then because it was still, whenever you and I met, I was still just me in a truck.
Yeah.
And I didn't
Garage
have
door 405.
Yeah, that was it. That was the one.
405 garage door, whatever it was, just like the other 12 of them.
Exactly. It was very bland. There was nothing to it. Yeah. So that was me. And that was right about the time I met you, is whenever I kind of had that mindset shift and it was switching over to growth mindset and starting to realize that there was a lot of potential out there that I wasn't taking advantage of. And so I started listening to some books and podcasts and found some mentors and really started making some changes to grow.
Well, that first off pisses me off a little bit that you had that mindset shift then, and you're on paper, you've outgrown me tremendously.
I don't know about that.
Son of a bitch, man. I had that mindset shift. I'm kidding.
I know. Yeah.
We're not competing, but secretly, we do. Yeah. But you didn't just come into this great situation that we're going to talk about, this awesome avenue that a lot of contractors are unaware of as a form of exit or selling or escalating the business. But let's go way back because, dude, you got an inspirational story. And let's go back, were you 6 pounds, 7 ounces, 7 pound, one? How big of you were considered a fat baby, right? I'm just kidding.
It was 6'7". I was a rather large infant, if you will. Believe it or not. I see some of the pictures. I'm like, what the hell were y'all feeding me? That was just crazy. I was actually 6'7". I was born in 1976. And that's the only reason I remember those numbers. But yeah, I was born and raised right here in Oklahoma City. Single mom, went through all kinds of, stuff there. That's, no different than a lot of individuals out there. It was pretty rough for a long time. Mom was working 3 jobs. I remember, I had lots of sitters or just neighbors or some people that would just take care of me. My mom had, several different husbands, boyfriends come through at the time, not knocking that. It was just part of the process for her. And we had some pretty rough times through a lot of those. There was a lot of physical abuse for her and me both through some of those years. End up, I don't know if it's because of that or not. I ended up, just going and getting a lot of trouble. Elementary school, I actually got kicked out or expelled from elementary school a couple of months before 6th grade was going to end. So never even finished. And at that point, I was too old to stay in elementary school anyway, because I'd already been held back a couple of times. And from there, went into this middle school thing, and that didn't last very long at all, maybe a couple, 3 months. And I ended up in juvie, getting a lot of trouble in and out of the juvenile court system. And with that, I ended up in the military school and up in Missouri. Man, I thought I was a tough kid. I really did. I was like, man, I'm out here on the streets in Oklahoma City doing all these tough things. And I was what I thought was a fairly popular kid, and I get there and I was just this little turd, man. And I was getting beat up all the time, and it was just horrible. I mean, it was rough. And so I went through a lot of that for a couple of years, ended up back in Oklahoma City, and I was still getting in some trouble and things like that, but ended up finding a trade to get into. I couldn't get back into school. On paper, we actually just recently realized on paper, I really only have about a 5th grade education. I did go through some other grades, but I never completed a single one after that. Past 5th grade, I had an amazing teacher who I still stay in touch with on Facebook. We actually keep teasing about going and grabbing lunch one day, and I've got to make that happen. But it's the only grade that I know of that I really ever passed, except for probably kindergarten or something. But we ended up, I ended up back in Oklahoma getting in some trouble and fell into a trade, and that was garage doors. And, it was awesome.
Well, it's funny that I think I remember hearing smallest things that like get you in the trades. For me, it was my dad, like, no, you're just going to work for me when I can't find a babysitter. But wasn't there some story about a refrigerator that kind of like just happened, and all of a sudden it was like it all started with a refrigerator or something like that?
Yeah. We had some type of damage or something on the floor at my mom's house, and I was staying at her house at the time. I was crashing on people's couches or, whatever, sleeping in my truck or whatever, and ended up staying at my mom's house at this particular time. And this guy had come in to redo the floors, and he needed to move the refrigerator, and his helper didn't show up. So he asked me to help him. And I really, my first thought was, why is this jackhole asking me to help him move stuff? I'm sitting there trying to watch TV, and I end up helping him out and helped him do a couple other things that day, and then helped his next day. The next day, the helper didn't show up again. So I helped him lay tile on this floor. And I was like, man, this is actually, in my mind, I was like, this is actually kind of cool, kind of doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And he threw me some cash at the end of the day. And I thought, man, that was a pretty cool thing to do. So he ended up offering me a job. Yeah. I think it was like $250 or $300 a week. He offered me a job, and I'm like, okay. And so I did that with him for a brief time, and he remodeled kitchens and did things like that. But he got kind of slow. It was just a kind of a one-man show. And so we ended up in that brief amount of time that I was with this man. He took a real shine to me, and I really looked up to him because I just liked the fact that he was working with his hands. He was doing something. People were calling him to come fix things and do things in their homes. And that was something I didn't even really know existed in a positive way. And so anyway, I didn't really have a adult male positive figure in my life at the time. And he kind of, was that for me. And so we really kind of connected. And short story long is when he got slow, he didn't want to see me get back out on the streets and get in trouble. So he called up a friend of his that was in the garage door space.
Johnny Hale, wasn't it?
Johnny Hale. That's
Johnny
the
Hale,
one. Yeah. Hale's Overhead Door Company had been around at that time for quite a few years. And now that company's been around for 45 years.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, so that's how I got into the garage door trade.
Well, this is a cool segue because we can Quentin Tarantino this a little bit.
I love it.
If you want to listen to the journey from where Jeff went from that moment of Johnny to where they are today, go back. I think it's like our 101st episode. Like
Sounds
we
right.
talk about all that. But today we're going to do some fast forward because that little jerk of a kid that like was always in trouble and bouncing and couch surfing, essentially, went on to grow probably one of the biggest brands in the country. Not only that, had a great growth event, which some people call it an exit event, but Jeff didn't exit. And then once again, went through one of the most talked about acquisitions just recently that it shows the opportunity in the trades. So there's our like segue. And not only that, he's got this, well, you're starting to build, you've already done this with your mentoring because you mentor youth in the Rotary leadership. It's called?
Rotary
RILA,
Youth
right?
Leadership. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
RILA.
Sorry.
Correct.
Forgive me.
Yeah. No,
And now
good.
you're transferring that to other business owners through your social media, which we'll put some links down. I love the content because it's like, we've talked about this stuff. And
Yeah.
when I have a bad day, I just pop it up and you and Brittany are there talking about people and all that. And I'm like, fuck people. I had a bad day. But you're right, Jeff. But yeah, so you like just worked your ass off. Take us through the first opportunity, because you didn't take the first opportunity to sell your business. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, man, I got to get on this train. They have FOMO. And why did you not take that first opportunity? What were the red flags that hit?
Yeah, great question. When we started growing Jolly Goat, when we rebranded to Jolly Goat and started growing that business, we started getting traction in our community. But what I didn't realize, we're also gaining traction around the country. people were recognizing our brand in our industry, outside of our industry, people in the HVAC world, even, and all these other, I'm getting phone calls and emails of people just, I love your brand. So it was really taking hold around the nation. And with that growth, we had a lot of really rapid growth. I mean, we were doubling revenue there for 2 or 3 years straight. And so we started getting private equity companies that were coming at us left and right. And at the time, I didn't really understand what that meant, right? So I'm on Google, I'm checking out, I'm trying to learn this on myself. I'm talking to other people, talking to mentors, saying, hey, what's this about? And, the biggest thing to me was that, we had such and it was just a few people at the time. We always, even today, we're not as big as most people out there think we are. But we're operating like we're 10x the size we are right now. And that's the image that we portray. Every single person on our team, that's what we believe, because we know that's where we're going to be tomorrow. So that's how we live today. And so everybody always thought we were a lot bigger. So a lot of the PE companies that were coming at us, once I started telling them my numbers and things like that, they were like, yeah, no, we're probably not quite there yet, but maybe we work some out. But there was a lot of them that said, yeah, we can help you get to where you want to go. So we sat down to look at what that looked like. And you talk about those red flags. They said, okay, here's what we're going to do for you. We're going to come in, we're going to bring a manager in, we're going to bring somebody come in to run this and do that. And we'll take over this and that. And all of the things they were saying to me sounded not great, because it was all they want to do is come in and just change what we had. And we were still on this growth plan that was working really well. It really was. The culture was amazing. The team was there. Everybody was on board, and we're growing it like crazy. And I know that would have, if we would have brought somebody in like that, they would have just completely crushed everything that we had going on. And I think it probably would have stunted everything traditionally. At that point, the only value probably would have been just the Jolly Goat brand itself. I think the company and the people would have really suffered. So for us, that was a no. We're definitely not going to do something like that.
Well, just for a comparative, some companies reach out to me, but they're not in your particular space. And they're like, yeah, we're starting to get people calling us about wanting to buy our business. And they're like 4 or 5 million. But you were starting to get these at like 1.5 million.
Yeah, 1.5,
Yeah.
getting close to 2 million. Yeah.
So that just goes to show it's like, you don't have to be some monstrous company to have something that's worth value.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if somebody's in that range, sometimes many of them are walking around and have nothing of value because they haven't done the right things. What did you do differently at that level that people that are interested in that should be doing in the company, or what should they be changing in meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. There were several changes. One of the biggest changes probably was me personally, and it was just growth mindset. That's what it was. I didn't have a vision. I knew that, I can make some money doing this thing called garage doors. And I knew that I could grow a business over time. And a lot of people I talk about grow. If your business grows 5 or 10% year over year, then you're doing good. And to me, I'm like, well, I guess that's just what I have, But once I shifted over that growth mindset mode, 5 or 10% was just I'm failing huge if that's all we're doing, right? So it needed to be 100%. And the growth had to go there. The biggest thing, to answer your question, was definitely me personally, the growth mindset. The things I actually put in place where everybody kept talking about these systems and processes, right? And that scared the hell out of me. I was like, I don't even know what a process is. I'm like, all of a sudden, and accountability, that word accountability was to me, I'm going back to my youth going, man, ain't nobody going to tell me what to do. I'm my own boss, blah, blah, blah. And it was really difficult for me to accept that stuff. But when I did accept it, the growth was just exponential. It was amazing. Started to get to know my numbers was probably one of the hugest spots. I think, okay, I looked at my numbers, not from a P&L aspect. I didn't have a P&L back then. It was just, my numbers were how much money is in the bank account.
How much money came in? How much money going out?
What bills do I have to put off to next month? What can I pay this month? And that was it. So starting to know the numbers and understand what's coming in and what needs to go out and being more strategic about those numbers was obviously a huge game changer for us at the time, for sure.
Let's talk about know your numbers, because people say that all the time. And you hear these guys on the internet say, know your numbers. And like, I look at it as like, first off, know your financial reports, profit and loss, balance sheets, and statement of cash flows. Then know your KPIs, right? And like, I know that, but when you say like know your numbers, what are the top 3 that, like, if you don't know them now, get that, otherwise you shouldn't be even adventuring into trying to sell your business?
Sure. And you mentioned KPIs. Like, the first time I went to a conference and we were talking about KPIs and this and that, I literally had to Google it to see what the hell that meant. Like that's, that was the level I was at the time. And so, but no, some of those numbers, it really is, for me, it was super basic. The numbers because I'm never been a real numbers guy. If I didn't have a calculator, I could barely add anything kind of stuff. These numbers just make sense in my head. But what I needed to understand was when it came to money going out, what was going out, how was it going out? Was it because at the time, like most entrepreneurs, when we start out, like my bank account, my commercial bank account, business bank account was paying my, my car insurance, my gas, all of our, dinners, whatever. So I had to get all that organized.
Mhm.
Once I separated the personal from the business, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Business actually can make some, I'm not actually broke. It does make money. So I started to understand those numbers a little bit better and actually started paying myself a percentage off of what I was actually out earning whenever I was out doing sales, and I was still doing the installs and everything at the time and doing the work. So I just paid myself a percentage like I would another employee. Once I separated those and I actually started seeing that there's, I can make some money doing this. Then it came down to, well, what now the money that needs to go out, what does that money look like? The money that is actually in the account. So really basic stuff. It started out because, again, especially for guys that's just like me, just a chuck in a truck, those things were super scary to me because I started to try to figure out, I need to know this P&L world. I need to know this. I need to know that. But I really didn't. I just really had to start at the very, very, very basic stuff. Separating the personal from the business was a huge step for me. Huge step.
Well, even before you sold a portion of your company and you finally, I want to get back to like how you finally decided with a financial partner, which I mentioned our last episode was all about partnerships. And I held some details there specifically for this conversation. But you've purchased some companies too. And I love the fact that you purchased Johnny's business, your mentor.
Yeah.
But you've also explored and bought other businesses. So when you come in those, what are the first things that you're like, I need to see this?
Honestly, my biggest thing is leads, is that phone ringing.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing for us. Like if we buy this business tomorrow, how much phone volume are we going to have? How many leads do we have coming in? Where are those leads coming from, right? Are they paying for those leads, or do we have wall stickers out there? Are these just referral customers? What does that piece of it look like? That's the very first thing we'll look at. Then we'll start to look at other things. A couple of the businesses that we bought was basically just kind of a phone number buy.
Yeah.
And that was important. Others that we bought has been complete companies. So, we're getting people, we're getting vehicles, the whole thing. So there's every single deal that goes through. We've got another one on the table now. It's like it's crazy because they're all kind of like same size businesses that we're looking at now, but they are all so different in the way that they're built, the way they're set up, the way that they operate. So each deal has to be very strategic. They're so different. But yeah, we look at the first thing is that phone ringing. That's the most important thing.
All right, tradies, I know lead generation has been top of mind for all of us this last year and going into 2026. So let me put you onto a marketing team I actually trust, Greenbaum Steyer's Strategic Marketing Group. And oh yeah, they're friends and network affiliate of ours, but I'm telling you straight, these guys are different. Most marketing agents, they've never worn boots. They never dealt with seasonality, weird leads, price shoppers, no shows. Mrs. Johnson calling you back 3 times because her basement feels wet. Greenbaum Steyer's was literally born out of a successful foundation repair and waterproofing company like mine, so they actually understand how our businesses work. They've been doing this since 2017. They're a full service branding, website. They convert with SEO, compounding over time, traditional media buying, and of course, lead generation that makes the phone ring. But the big thing is strategy. They're focused on helping you overcome what's holding you back, tighten up your systems, and hit real goals, profitable goals, and not just some vanity metrics and pretty reports that you can brag about at some conference. So if you're tired of guessing, tired of wasting money, and you want a team that knows contractors and knows how to drive results, go check out Greenbaum Steyer's Strategic Marketing Group. Tell them Will and Terry sent you. Their website's greenbaumsteyers.com. That's GreenbaumSteyers.com. I'll put it in the link. Keep grinding out there, tradies. Well, and I know a few of those deals, like you were gobbling up just a phone number, but a few other ones, like they were legitimate companies. Like you mentioned, there was staff there. Like, what was that like merging them into your existing systems and processes.
Yeah.
'Cause they didn't have the same CRM,
Mm,
obviously didn't have the same branding, definitely didn't have the same culture. You guys have an
correct.
awesome culture all into itself.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Everything was different
because
for sure.
people talk about buying businesses or growth through acquisition,
Yeah.
but they don't tell you about that culture merge that happens. So what was that like on the first few?
So, and I love that question too, because we learned a lot along this last process, which was a fairly decent sized company. And the cool thing about it was I started trying to think, okay, what does it look like the day of, when we switch over, bring everybody over, we break the news to everybody. What does that look like? So I started talking to other companies that had done this in the past, other business owners. And they're like, yeah, we brought everybody over. We lost half of them, or, they didn't mesh well with the teams and blah, blah, blah. We lost some of our people. We lost some of their people. We had to hire, and it was all this that I kept hearing was these owners kept everything secret from everybody. And they're like, look, let's work all this stuff out on our own, between what we got to work out. And then we'll bring the teams involved.
Mhm.
So I thought, well, how can we do this a little bit different? So we brought the teams in 90 days, a little over 90 days before the deal was even done. We brought them in, we started talking to them, sat down with them. I personally went and sat down with them, their families, their spouses on the other team, trying to see, okay, is this person going to be a good fit for the company or not? Is this something that we're definitely going to be able to onboard, or potentially have to figure something else out? And so we started talking to them about it, and we started getting their buy-in. Like, hey guys, what do you guys think about this deal? This is what it's going to look like. We're going to have, these vehicles coming over. We're going to have these people coming over. We're going to have these kind of different leads in an area where we've been trying to get saturated. We're going to be in that area now. Are you guys excited about that or not? What does that look like? What are our ticket average going to look like in these areas? What can we do? This is what the other company's ticket average is. This is what ours is. This is where we, so we shared all that information, and then shared with the other team that we're going to be onboarding about all the amazing stuff that we had going on, right?
Yeah.
All the company stuff that we do, all our quarterly get-togethers that we do, the training that we were going to give them, the amount of money they were going to be able to start making, right? All the insurance, all the retirement, the matching funds, all the stuff, we let them know all of that stuff in advance. So there was no surprise for anybody when we did the deal. Everybody knew it was going to happen. And honestly, it was pretty smooth. Again, every time we're going to learn something in the process, but I think because of that, it was a really smooth process. The teams meshed. We were having meetings together again before we even signed the deal. We knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
It was at that point like where we knew, okay, there was, all the due diligence was done, unless something just stupid crazy happened, that would blow it out of the water. But we knew. So at that point, we started meshing the teams together, doing some Zooms together, and just making sure everybody knew each other instead of just a boom, open the door and here's a new wave of something different, right? Talking to all the owners that had gone down that road, I think that's where they made the biggest mistakes, was just keeping it secret. At Jolly Goat, our team is our family. Like, we don't keep anything from each other. We talk about it right away. And so I thought that, looking back as me as a leader, what's this going to look like to my team if all of a sudden I walk in, hey guys, I've been working this deal for 6 months, a year, and we're doing it tomorrow, right? They are not going to be happy about that, and I don't blame them. I wouldn't be either. So anyway, I think the biggest thing for that is just sharing it with everybody, being open and honest about it, and just talking about things and getting everybody excited about it. That was the biggest piece. So it was a pretty awesome deal.
Well, you can go on any home services Facebook thread or social thread or Reddit now, and if there's not private equity listed in there, it's like you're probably on MySpace, honestly.
True. Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah.
So I think there are still a lot of deals done. I've had them. We were just talking about one that's directly with owners. You've had several that you've purchased businesses with owners. But take us through the difference on what it's like actually doing a deal with a group or a platform. Commonly referred platform rather than PE, but they're typically the money's following from private investors. So tell our listeners the difference between that handshake over the coffee table on buying your business versus the due diligence and execution of a deal with a larger platform.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Because it's two completely different things.
Because I know that our listeners and a lot of home services companies, they hear about it and they think they want to explore this, but they don't have a clue what it's like. And I know I was that way years ago too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And because of, talking about earlier, because of all the PE companies that were coming at us left and right, that I was so turned off on. I was like, I just would say no to people. Anybody's like, hey, you interested in selling? You interested in a partner? Like, no. Don't want nothing to
Oh,
do with
dude,
it.
there are so many
It's crazy.
gunslingers out
Yeah.
there, and like PE, you could tell they're just trying to hawk a deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you have the judgment to be able to see that. And hopefully, if you're out there thinking about selling your business, you have the judgment
Absolutely.
to see like, oh yeah, this guy's like a God, what is it? Don Cheadle and like the goods,
Oh,
that
yeah.
where they bring in
Yeah.
the used car sales
Yep.
team
Yep.
and all that stuff. But
Yeah, that's a great movie. One
Yeah.
of the great sales movie of all time.
yeah,
but
we'll definitely we'll
Yeah.
pull out some babs. But yeah, like I've met some of the team that you partnered with, and I don't get those vibes. Obviously, that's the first barometer. But
Yeah.
what else is different about taking that avenue for an exit or a partnership versus other ones?
Yeah. So I was at an event and there was somebody in the garage door industry that I knew fairly well, but we weren't like good friends or anything. And he had sat down and he started talking about this group that was out there that he was partnering up with. And I told him immediately, I was like, yeah, no. And so he's like, well, just listen to me for a second. And we were having some drinks, and at the hotel bar. And he starts telling me about, well, it's not, because I told him, private equity just said to me right now, I want to be to a certain and EBITDA, I want to have all this stuff done, certain number of people, certain EBITDA, certain markets. I want to have all this done before we go to market and take on private equity. He's like, well, it's not private equity. Let me tell you kind of what this is. And he kept calling it a strategic partnership. And I didn't really understand what that meant either. But I listened to him and talked to him. And I thought, you know what? Okay, this actually sounds kind of interesting.
Mhm.
And I told myself in my head right then, I was like, or maybe in the hotel room later that night in my head, I was trying to figure these things out, what it would look like if I did partner with somebody like this. So I sat down and I said, okay, what if I wanted a partner, if I was going to take on a partner right now, what would it look like? And I just started writing all this stuff down, pros and cons. Right. And every single and then I met the next day with one of the partners of that business, and every single thing that I wrote down, they checked off the list in a positive way.
Mhm.
It was things like, they're not trying to come in, that they were really focused on the culture. They were focused on me as the owner, as the leader. The leadership team that we had in place was very important to them. That was special. That brought value. The growth that we had, that brought value. Our culture brought value. Everything that we were doing brought value. And they were just focused on that. At the time, he had told me, we're looking at businesses specifically like yours, and this is who we've already partnered with. This is who we plan on partnering with in the future. And I knew a lot of those people just from being in the space that we're in. And I started thinking, I was like, you know what, the ones that they've already partnered with, those are the businesses I've been mimicking. I've been getting ideas from
Yeah.
these guys for the
Yeah,
past
you
2 or
know
3
them.
years, right?
Yeah,
I know 'em.
they're
I'm like,
your
okay.
people. They're your
Yeah.
tribe.
So I pick up the phone, start making some calls like, hey guys, what's going on? How are we talking? And we started talking about, and it was just, everything was really positive, and sitting down with them, and actually calling it a strategic partnership was important to me, because to me, that's exactly what it was. They were going to come in and help us with so many things that we actually needed help with. And then they were going to leave the structure of the business and what we were doing in a good way all the same. They said, we don't want to, what you're doing is working. We don't want to change anything.
Mhm.
We're going to give you the resources to grow, continue to, they took my growth plan and said, here's how we can help you with your growth plan. What I wanted to do over the next 4 or 5 years, we could probably do in 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, let's look at what that looks like. And it made total sense. And that's exactly what we've done. And so that type of partnership was very appealing to me. That made sense. I still wasn't at the point of revenue and EBITDA that I wanted to be at, but I knew I could get there a lot quicker with a partnership like that.
Yes.
And so that's how those conversations started.
Well, I know there's a lot of folks out there that are like, well, if I sell my company, I'm out, or I'm
Yeah.
forced out.
Yeah.
But like you saw the opportunity, like I still got one of my sales. Your deal with Triple G is like awesome. There's more of these companies showing up in different sectors, not
Mhm.
just garage doors, where it's like, well, and by the way, thank you for saying that. There are organizations out there, platforms, that they're like, we're looking for this specific type of company.
Mhm.
I get introduced to them all the time. We're like, we only work with EOS driven companies.
Yep.
If you're not EOS, it's just, it burdens the integration process, things like that. But I mean, some of them, like your deal is, it's like, no, how do I take this from 1 to 7, then 12, then 15. Well, it takes capital. And it also takes like collective bargaining, which Triple G has done an awesome job of,
Amazing job. Yeah.
without like bringing this like, hey, you're in a company, like, because how many brands are there now?
So we are at 25 brands right now.
Okay. So
Yeah.
if you can answer this, you finally got your business to the point where you could, it was a value, and value could be exchanged in the form of money.
hmm
During the close, or what you thought it was before you started this, what was the multiple and EBITDA that you had in your head?
For the first deal.
Yeah, like before you even inked like an agreement with Triple G,
Yeah.
what were you hoping you get out of it?
I mean, I was hoping probably around 5 or 6x at the time.
Okay, then
Yeah.
the deal went through,
Yep.
and what did you get?
It was more than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah, it was more than that.
sneaky
Yeah.
little guy.
Yeah.
I could bleep it out. Chris, bleep
Yeah,
this
it's
out.
okay.
Like
No, it was more than that.
it was
Well,
37x, right? No, I'm just kidding.
yeah,
It
yeah.
wasn't.
Woo, yeah.
But then, like, well,
Yeah.
I mean, it was higher,
It was
and
higher.
then you guys just went through another growth spurt,
Correct.
which is going to throw more fuel in the fire. You still have ownership, and that was even higher by, call it 7+ x your original expectation.
Yeah.
Right.
So this one, it's public on this one. We went for 18x on this last round.
dude, that's fucking unheard of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's working.
hmm
And that's where I hope that this is a light bulb moment for somebody that, it's not like somebody came and dumped 18 times the amount of cash on the table,
Yeah. Not at all.
but there's 18 times amount more value there
Yeah.
out of a business turning wrenches and racking up garage doors. By the way, you just fixed one of our commercial garage doors
I
like the
saw that.
last 2
Yeah,
weeks.
I
So
saw that.
like it's not sexy work.
Mhm.
From a guy that was laying tile because of a fucking refrigerator to this. So
Yeah.
this is why I love to have you back on, because it's
Yeah.
like there are avenues for people to do this. And it's not just like, well, I got 13 calls and I'm pissed off today, so I'm going to call this one and sign an LOI
Right.
and then sell it for 7x. Because no, you can keep.
You can keep growing and keep rolling it. And for the listeners, you're listening to a guy right now that didn't even think it was possible to get a garage door company to $1 million in revenue. I didn't even realize that was a thing until that I had that mindset shift and started
Yeah.
meeting other entrepreneurs. And where we've gone from that thought process of me to now is people ask me every day, they're like, oh man, could you imagine seeing yourself where you're at now doing this? And my answer is yes,
Mhm.
absolutely I can, because I have vision. And whenever people see me in 3 to 5 years from now and 10 years from now, and what we have going on and the lives we're living and everything we're doing, and they say, man, can you imagine seeing yourself? You're damn right. I know exactly where we're going to be, exactly what we're going to be doing, and exactly how we're going to be doing it. And
Yeah.
that piece of it is just amazing to me. Once you have that shift and you can actually see what's going on, surrounding yourself with the right people is probably the very first
Yeah.
biggest thing I would recommend to anybody. Putting the right people in your circle is huge.
Well, and you had access to the other companies on the platform, which is good.
Mhm.
So Jeff, before we get into like the intricacies of post deal, what that transition looks like, there's guys out there like, why would I sell my company? I could just go to the bank. But I think like, well, the bank, they'll give you money. It's going to show up on your balance sheets, but they're not going to bring the processes and things like that. So I know you had some of those thoughts too. Like you were thinking like, well, I can grow on my own and I could probably finance it. And you had assets from your inventions that you'd made and things like that, but you didn't go that route. What was the major shift that made you think differently?
Ladies, running your small business can be demanding. You got suppliers you got to work with, you're managing crews, hell, you're chasing sales. It's a lot to take in. Listen, if you want to grow your business, you got to stop working in it and you got to start working on it. So that's where my friends at Foundation Rescue Supply come in. You're not just getting foundation repair products and waterproofing products and air quality control products. With their nationwide distribution, you're getting a partner who knows how to help you scale. And that's why I use them. The Foundation Rescue Supply team has industry knowledge that'll help make your life easier. You get the tools, the trainings, the systems that you need to move the needle. You want your sales team to close more leads? Done, because they have the proven process for that. You need your crews to work smarter, not harder? Done. Their installation training will get you out there and rocking and rolling in the field. With Foundation Rescue Supply, you're not just buying materials here, you're buying a better business system that they have helped create. And you sell more, you install more, and you grow your team. So the bottom line is this: you get best industry pricing, you get field productivity on track, and you get more revenue out of everybody on your team. So this is your chance to step up, scale up, and thrive. If you are ready to make that happen, head to foundationrescuesupply.com, check out their catalog, and speak to my friends, their team, how you can take beyond the products with your company with Foundation Rescue Supply.
Well, as far as the component of what Guild brought to the table,
Yeah.
So
In comparison to like a traditional bank
Yeah.
loan.
well, just what you said. I mean, with a bank loan, you're just going to get the money that you have to pay back, right, at an
Mhm.
interest rate. With Guild, and we mentioned Triple G earlier. Guild Garage Group is the group that we
Mhm.
partnered with, and with that, they brought so much to the table. They're still bringing stuff to the table even today that's just amazing. But one of the biggest pieces for me was the financial piece. Going back to what I said earlier, I'm just a old blue collar garage door guy, right? The numbers was something I always struggled with. I always had to pay people to take care of that for me, accountants and all that stuff. So that's something they took off the table, and were able to really get it even more dialed in than what we had. And we had a pretty good process in place at the time. So numbers was a big thing. Being able to collaborate with the other owners, you mentioned that earlier too. So all the other, we call ourselves brand presidents, right? We're the founders of the businesses, and with all the other founders and brand presidents, like, we are all just now a phone call away, and we collaborate every day. We're asking, hey, did this work for you? Did it not? What are we doing? And the really great thing is that, well, and there's other stuff too, obviously the things like health insurance, vehicle insurance, all this other stuff that we have that we're getting such great pricing on now that I
Yeah.
could never do on my own.
That consolidation is kind of like
It's
dude, it's a
insane.
magic
Yeah.
bullet. Like it's a secret
Yeah,
sauce.
look, we just got new prices this last week with one of the nation's largest garage door manufacturers that just blew all of us out of the water. We're like, holy cow, like, this is going to be
Nice.
huge, right? So anyway, and all that is all the collaboration of Guild Garage Group, right? And so now that we have all this stuff in place, it's so much easier for us to grow, right? And grow that bottom line, most importantly. And those are all just several components to it. Honestly, the companionship from that, you're not going to get with your banker. Your banker has always got,
Yeah.
has got an agenda, right? He's got a boss he's got to answer to. The companionship that all the founders have with each other, and we have with the leadership inside Guild, and all the people that Guild has added. I mean, we're adding new people all the time just because we have to, because of the growth, right? That's just been amazing. It's like a whole new family. And the best part of it is that we're all rowing in the same direction, right? So there's not a lot of, nobody's butting heads. If it is, it's something little, we solve it, we get it taken care of real quick and move
Funny
on, right?
the goat guy says nobody.
Nobody, that's
butting
exactly
heads,
right. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you. Yes.
I've
That's
seen your
good.
goats
They,
butt
they-
people
well,
and shit on the floor.
they
like,
love
I-
to shit on
yeah.
the floor. Yeah. But they butt heads with each other a lot, but thankfully not other people. But that's what goats do. So,
Yeah.
I would say those are probably the biggest things to me that were just like, wow, this is the right decision. This is the right move to go ahead and move forward with it.
So because we're seeing more and more platforms that have kind of this product offering. Keep your brand, keep your team, keep your culture. We're just gonna throw jet fuel in the systems and processes. What is something you regretted not doing during that process that was like, man, I should have asked about this. I should have learned more about that. That obviously the relationship's good now, but I know you and I talked about this experience when you were going through it. And this was your first one.
Yeah. It was new.
And we always come out of it with like, oh man, I thought I knew, but now I know.
Yeah.
So what are the top like one or two things that said, man, if I could go back, I would have asked this question, or I would have maybe approached this at a different level.
Yeah, it would have probably just been, probably just some technical stuff with numbers and things like that. Because again, like you said, it was a new process for me. So, they have their attorneys on their side, I have my attorney on my side, and we're talking about stuff and going through. And of course, this contract comes through, and it's like,
Mhm.
oh my God, like I don't read at all. I listen to everything because I have the reading, thing. And so I get this thing, and I mean, it was, 2 or 3 inches thick of papers. And I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? Like all these months of preparation, all the due diligence, all worked out. And now we got this huge stack of papers in front of me.
Yeah.
And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. It's like, man, maybe I'm not ready for this. I don't know. I can't read through all this. So that's where, again, surround yourself with the right people, getting the right attorney in place. Probably looking back, I don't I don't regret anything about anything in the deal that was done, but probably just knowing some of the numbers a little bit differently or a little bit better, understanding them, I should say, because everything I knew about numbers at that point, I had gotten, was able to read a P&L pretty darn well these days at that point, and because I was trained to do so. But now everything that we're looking at is all different, right? And the projections for what the business is going to do, all that stuff is all different now, right? And so that was probably, one of the things I wish I would have sat down and looked at a little bit closer, a little bit differently, not in a negative way, just to understand it better, mostly so I could explain it to other people better, right? And my
Yeah.
team and things like that.
Well, it's kind of funny. You think of well, you met Michael Gerber
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
E-Myth. He talks about like moving from a technician, working on the business, rather in the business, on the business.
yeah.
But he needs to come up with another version of this, because you've kind of gone from the amateur level, like I'm moving a refrigerator and doing tile.
Mhm.
Then you got into technician work.
Yeah.
Then you finally got into owner level. Now technically you're into operations systems management,
Mhm.
but you also have gone up to a level of wealth management. And now, I'm not saying that for your management, but
Sure.
the decisions that you guys are making now, like you mentioned before, health benefits, like you have employees that are being promoted within now just not your little hierarchy, like the entire family. And that affects like a whole generation of people now.
Absolutely.
And like I sense that that's kind of like where the next chapter of home service contractors are. But I mean, is there a level I'm missing in there
No, not at all.
other than farmer? Because I know you still have goats. in
Yeah,
your
yeah,
shop.
that's a bit.
That's part of
That's
your
not
brand.
for everybody, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't recommend livestock for every business owner, but if you got it in your front yard, that's okay too. So it's just part of it.
Yeah.
But no, it's growing the families and inside of our Jolly Goat empire, and having them. Actually, we have another baby that's about to be born next week. I think we're up to 5 Jolly Goat babies now, which is just awesome.
Okay.
So-
Now these aren't kids, goats.
That's
kids.
correct. These
Like,
are
they're
humans.
human
Yeah, these are
babies.
2-legged
Okay.
babies. Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So,
cool.
when the people growing their families and things like that, that's something that's always been a part of our culture. But now being with Guild, it's even more amazing. There's so much more security, retirement plans, all that stuff. That was stuff that we always wanted to do, but just didn't have the ability to be able to do it. So all that stuff being in place now, our culture, I was still curious about how our culture was going to change a little bit, because obviously when you have changes, culture changes. Even
Yeah.
as much as we prepared for it, talked to everybody about it, I thought, man, I didn't want everybody to get turned off of this, kind of, lack of a better term, but like kind of the corporate lifestyle of things. Whenever you bring in some new systems and processes, that's kind of what you're working with. So I sat down and
Let me pause
Yeah.
you there, because I feel like you guys were pretty dialed in before this partnership on these are the XYZs of how we do it. You had a step for not everything, but most
just about
things.
everything.
And some people could view that as corporate.
Yeah.
But they also look in your business. It's like, oh, well, you're doing like 2.4 million. You can't be corporate at 2.4 million,
Right,
right? Now,
right.
obviously, you grew past that before the acquisition, but like you haven't seen that change in your internal
No,
team, right?
no. Yeah, it's like, and we did. You're right. Well, like we had so many systems and processes in place. Everybody knew exactly what to do all the time. I mean, we had a system
Mhm.
for how to open the door to your truck. Where to park. I
Yeah.
mean, just stuff like that. How to knock on the customer's door. Right. Everything was dialed in, and so. But the things that are changing now, or that have changed since then, were like our meetings cadence and different things like that. So those are kind of like some of the changes I was talking about, that I didn't know how they were going to be accepted with the team. But because of everything else that Guild's brought to the table to help Jolly Goat grow and our families grow, that everybody, I mean, honestly, our culture's just gotten better and better. And it's just been an amazing ride.
I know this happens because that I'm part of a larger platform, but I went the family office route,
Right,
which is very
right.
similar to what we
Yeah,
did.
it's very close.
Sydney and I are still heavily involved. It creates like this. Well, are you sensing that there's some competitiveness against the Jolly Goat and the other brands now? Like,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
dude, Vesta is fucking
Yeah,
competitive.
no,
bro.
absolutely.
Like, they do not want to lose.
So one of the biggest things Guild brought to the table is this beautiful thing called Power BI. So now we have access to everybody every day that we can pull up on my phone. I can see what
yeah.
every other brand is doing, right? Even though Jolly Goat's one of the smaller revenue driving brands under Guild Garage Group, I can see what everybody else is doing. So now my new KPIs are focused on percentages of like who's got the best percentage closing rate, who's, all this. That's what we're striving to get to now. So yes, and we're definitely more competitive now than we were. And the brands, we tease each other about it because we've got a brand that may be doing, just for example, 20 million in revenue, maybe 30, 40 million in revenue, whatever, and we'll look at like conversion rates, close rates, and things like that. And Jolly Goat, it likes to be at the top of the list for those.
Well, and I know like that's probably we just touched on it briefly, but I think it underscores the fact like when you're getting approached by these companies, find the ones that fit your core values and culture. Because I've met some of the other companies at Triple G, and they are like your people.
Yeah.
And by the way, what's this dashboard? It's called Power BI. Okay, so like when you logged in for the first time, did you have a Power BM like shit?
Pretty much.
Type thing? Like what happened?
So much information.
She knows. By the way, Brittany, Jeff's fiance, is in the studio here, so we're trying to get her chuckled up. Yeah. Power BM. Oh shit, we are really bad at this, but really good at that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can dial so much stuff in now, and we can find out exactly where we can dial it in to the person, to the truck, to the job, whatever, where we have an issue. All by driven numbers. It's just insane what we can do with it. So yeah, and then all we gotta do is tweak that one little thing instead of saying, okay, there's an area of focus that needs some help over here. Let's shift all this to try to fix that. Now we can actually take that area of focus and dial that down to like the 1% of the problem and fix that 1%, which just makes it beautiful.
I know that there's a sense of like there's always more, grow, but there's tons of market growth in our backyard.
Yeah.
And you guys are starting to scale into adjacent markets, which you've been doing for years, just chipping away at it. So what's the next level? Because you got into this partnership for growth. You're growing. You just doubled down because you went through another partnership within Triple G, going for the next growth trajectory curve. But what's the next step for you guys as an organization?
Yeah, just massive growth. We're looking at multiple markets. Now we're already in multiple markets, but we're looking at expanding that even a little bit further. One of the things I've said for several years is just Oklahoma domination. Like we want to dominate every market that we can inside Oklahoma. And there's so many what we call like boutique markets, like we opened up in Enid, Oklahoma, which there's only like 3 door companies there, but it's a $1 million+ year market. Right. And so there's a lot of those all around. And so there's a lot of, and it's not too far from our main market. But so anyway, that's where a lot of our growth is. Getting into some of the other markets up in Kansas and Arkansas and things like that is definitely something we're focused on. There's another big market here in Oklahoma that we're working on right now that we'll be in probably in the next 12 months, and we'll be aggressive there. That's going to double, currently what we're doing now. So yeah, just going to keep growing the team, continue to, find amazing people that want to do amazing things in life and welcome them onto our team and help them grow, and just keep doing what we do best. I'd say for actual numbers, I'm looking in the next, 3 years when we potentially will, possibly have another exit situation or maybe go to market at that point for something. I'd like to be a 30+ million and still hitting a 20% net. Yeah.
By the way, do you guys, back to the boutique markets, do you guys measure like market saturation rates?
We do. Yeah. And on the boutique markets, it's pretty easy because there's not a lot going on there. Right.
Yeah. Like I'm a big fan of these. A lot of people poo poo on them because it's kind of like they're penny stocks, right? But they're not. Like
you can make millions off of penny stocks,
Yeah. I mean, it's easy. Like in our, the ego that happens when we're trying to grow our business. You hear some company like, oh, dude, we're doing 20 million. It's like, yeah, of course you are. You've been in business 18 years and you're in Atlanta.
Right.
But then you measure the market saturation rate to like what somebody may be doing in Olathe, Kansas. And honestly, like they're making more dollars from every homeowner dwelling in that market by like $6 more.
Yeah.
And it's like, those are the companies I respect because it's like they're maximizing their opportunity, not just like trying to absorb 8 million people in a greater metropolitan market. So we've started leaning into that a lot because there's tons of, call it vanity in home services where it's like, oh yeah, we did X amount and we grew. And it's like, yeah, well, of course you fucking did. You're surrounded by like 6 million people.
Right.
Like you have more people in your market than my entire state.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we made like X amount of profit per person in the grocery. And we measure this now. We're at like $7 essentially market value in our area. So it's like essentially what it comes down to is every qualified customer, or could be qualified customer in our populace, it's $7. So I'm sitting at the grocery store. There's literally like 4 people in front of me, and I'm like, all right, there's 7, 14, 21,
Yeah.
28.
Yeah.
So there's $28 that will eventually flood to my company at some point. And like market saturation is just, it's wild to see, because I bet you like those Enids,
Mhm.
these small boutique markets, man, they love good brands that are human
They do.
beings.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
have you seen pushback from companies thinking like, yeah, oh, you're big, you're some corporate thing?
Yeah.
Like, or not companies, sorry. Do you see pushback from customers? Because I think you guys have done a good job with your brand.
Yeah,
on
we
that, right?
have. And we don't get a lot of pushback, but we get a lot of, oh, you're a franchise or this and that, because we've kind of
Yeah.
built ourselves around a franchise model, because that's a successful model and it works, right? And so that's the image that we actually have. So a lot of people think that we're some big national brand that's, franchised and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So, but most of the time, and we actually have a whole new line of marketing that's about to come out, just about the founder, myself, being local, born and raised here in the state, and giving back and all the stuff that we do to help kind of combat some of that stuff. But overall, we haven't really had any negative. I mean, obviously, you're gonna have 1 or 2 people here and there about something, but overall, it's been really positive with the brand itself, especially in those smaller markets. What it is in those smaller markets, we started looking at them and we found our biggest need, or that there was a need there that we could service and service well, that these customers, these homeowners had not been serviced in years and years and years. So we get in there and we start meeting with these homeowners and realizing really fast that they just haven't been serviced properly all this time. That's all they want. They just want somebody to come out and take care of them. They don't care what it costs. Let's just get it done. Let's fix it right. They're in late, over the past several years, they've been calling the same person out multiple times a year to fix the same little BS problem or do this or do that. And now we're coming out there going, hey, how about a new door? How about a beautiful door? Look at this. This would look great on your home. And it might be $5, $6, $10,000 door. They're used to paying $200, $300 repairs multiple times a year. And they're looking at us going, shit, I wish somebody would offer this 5 years ago, right? Where have you been? We've been waiting for you. And so we found a lot of success and a lot of huge customer satisfaction in that area, just because those little smaller companies that are in these markets just don't have the ability to be able to offer what we can. And that's where it's fresh and refreshing for the community. And then they start talking about it and gobbling it all up. And yeah, it's awesome.
Well, I want to give a real life example of like, hey, like how about a new door? Look at this. Like your team's a lot better than that. Even it's just call it situational awareness.
Sure.
Like even in my house, I had to have some repairs done. You know how it goes. The spring breaks.
Yep.
And it's like, all right, well, look at that dumb little goat sticker on there. Even though I bypass it and I just call you directly. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But the tech came out and then he was like, hey, by the way, like, is that a bedroom above the garage? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, does it wake whoever stays up there up when it comes in the early morning or late night? And I'm like, actually, it does. He goes, I can replace the springs on that for you. It'll turn that thing quiet as a church mouse. It's like, and I'm like, cool, do it. And he wrote it up and done. And it was an upsell, but it was a completely sensible upsell attached to an issue that I have. So like back to your training and systems and processes, it was like a no brainer. And most people won't do that because they're afraid people are like, well, they just want the spring.
Yeah.
fixed,
They do the
right?
bare minimum. Bare minimum.
Well, you also, like, Jeff, before we wrap up, like, I have you on direct line because I love you to death and I can just call you anytime I want. And then half the time you don't answer, by the way, but that's okay too. He's busy with Brittany planning their soon to be wedding. By the way,
Yes.
super pumped about
Very
this. We were
excited.
like, we're never going to find this guy a suitor. We have no idea how this is going to work out. We're just going to have to pony him up and put him on the marketplace. But he found a great fiance, Brittany, which you can find on your social media stuff.
Absolutely.
By the way.
Yeah. We've been doing a lot together.
But you mentor a lot of people. And you've done this through RILA and the youth leadership stuff. but you also do this through businesses too. And you're not afraid to like share numbers with local competitors. So how do people get a hold of you if they just want to ask you questions unsolicited around this journey that you went through and selling a portion of your business, upselling again and growing, and because you're building like an empire. It's cool.
Yeah, we're having a lot of fun with it for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, easiest way to get a hold of me, honestly, is through Facebook. I'm on there pretty regularly. It's just Jeff Gablesberg, Gablesberg. I'm the only Jeff Gablesberg in the world, so you can't mistakenly
You are.
find anybody else on there. So it's pretty easy. That would be it. But getting back to the mentorship of young people. One of the things that Brittany and I, kind of focus on are couples that are in a business, have a home service business, and they're struggling and they want to try to get to the next level. We really want to try to help them out and just give advice and do whatever we can, find out a little bit about their story and where they're trying to go and kind of work through some of those struggles with them to make them successful. We love doing that because we just want to make sure that, we've been blessed. And so, there's been a lot of free advice that's come my way. Some of it I took, some of it I didn't, some of them I used and it worked, some I used and it didn't work. But I figure as much as we can help people in any way that we can, that's what we're here to do. And, getting back to the local thing, absolutely. I mean, we invite anybody and everybody to our shop to get a shop tour. Anybody that comes in our place for the first time, they get a shop tour, kind of check it out, see what we have going on, give a breakdown of our culture, our team, how we've built what we're building and where we're going. We also have a little bit of history in there too. We can show where we're at, where we are, where we're going. And yeah, anybody and everybody's welcome to hit me up there and start a conversation.
Well, first off, on the couple side, bro, it's needed.
Yeah, no, we see that.
Like it is a superpower if you can be in business with, an emotional partner, whether that's your girlfriend, fiance, spouse, husband, whatever. Like, doesn't matter. But dude, it comes with some work.
It does. Yeah.
And yeah,
it does.
Okay, let me know when that goes live.
Yeah.
Well, Sydney.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
bro, been at it 22 years, worked together 20 years together. But man, if you can channel it right, it's a superpower.
Yeah.
But it is so easy to make it a strain on the relationship.
Yeah. A lot of what we see in that, and this is a whole nother podcast series to talk
No,
about.
seriously.
But one of the biggest is just the couples just aren't aligned. They're not eye to eye because either he or she or whatever the relationship is they are, and one of them's really focused on the business, the other's really focused on something else. They might have two separate jobs and they're just not aligned with those. And once we get them aligned and they kind of thinking in the same direction, their whole lives change.
I know, and it's always the woman. I don't get it. I'm just kidding. Like,
I don't know about that.
I knew this at the last episode because typically, like, listen, I'm just kidding. Hey, no, Sydney, please, if you're listening this far in. Anyway, Jeff, love you, dude. You're my man. We've been friends a long time. I'm so proud of you.
Love you too, brother. Thank you, man.
And really, before we close out, when's the book come out? It comes out here in 3 months, right? Okay, cool. There's our show. Now he's held accountable to it. He'll go get that
3
done,
months is kind of quick.
Oh, no, we'll get it done. ChatGPT. Anyway, guys, tradies, appreciate you guys for hanging out another episode with Jeff. 3rd episode with Jeff.
Cheers, guys.
Go check out some old stuff from him. And yeah, appreciate you guys. We'll see you next week.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Beers with Contractors. We hope you enjoyed our chat as much as we did. Before we say our final goodbyes, a friendly reminder. Beers with Contractors encourages responsible drinking. If you choose to enjoy a beverage during our time together, please do so in moderation and only if you're of legal drinking age in your country or state. Furthermore, the advice and insights shared in this podcast are for informational purposes only. Always consult with professionals and experts in your field, and be sure to follow local laws and regulations regarding licensing and permits. We're here to help, entertain, and inspire, but your safety and compliance are important. So, as you head out into the world of construction and contracting, remember to build responsibly and make decisions that stand the test of time. Thanks for joining us today. We'll catch you on the next episode of Beers with Contractors. Until then, cheers to your success.